again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We have a lot to talk about. I just mentioned, as far as the intro to the show, 3 studio albums. Last one in 1991 with Day One. Then all of a sudden, we didn't hear from you again. Then you had to kind of peek behind the curtain. You were doing some exceptional songwriting for a lot of people in this industry, very talented people in this industry. And I wanted to ask you, when did you decide just to segue and say, you know what, I'm going to be more comfortable just doing what I need to do as far as putting more emphasis on being a songwriter?
The truth is that even before I did my first record back in '85, I think it came out in '86, I was already writing for a lot of other people. Indirectly, that kind of led to my record deal because I'd be singing a lot of the demos on the different demos that I'd be sending out, and some record folks started to ask about who was I and wanted to know more about me, particularly one guy named Bobby Colombi over at Capitol Records. But and that's kind of started me down that road. But at the same time, I was always writing for other people. Like even before my own deal, I had songs with Pointer Sisters and Sheena Houston and a lot of other groups. So as far as with the artist thing, you're right. I mean, after that album, there was some different political things going on at the record company which were factors in some of that, and I kind of was sort of taking a break from it. But I never kind of stopped during that time writing for other people, so I guess I just kind of ended up veering more towards that. And I've always loved it. And on some level, even when you're writing for other people, there's still a part of it that's yourself, because you're putting yourself, imagining sort of in someone else's style or shoes or what have you. But on some level, it's all connected to me. I sort of don't separate it as much, but you're right. I'm not out there putting out my own records anymore, but still singing on a lot of the stuff. And, yeah.
What I find so fascinating, because during the 80s, I call it the MTV era of music. We were invaded by the British, called it the second coming of the British invasion, of course, with your videos and other things. And it was a huge launching pad for a lot of musical careers. And I wanted to ask you, where do you see the difference back then as far as the 80s and where we're currently at as far as music is concerned? Because they're not shooting a quote-unquote big-budget videos like they used to in the 80s, and now you see a lot of independent artists are finding their way through YouTube or using Pro Tools or using things at their disposal to get major record deals, or just remaining independent artists and becoming very successful with the streaming now.
I mean, it's a very different world, no doubt, but it's always been changing, because before MTV, I sort of happened to start right around that time when MTV was really coming into its own and really peaking. It had been out a few years before me, but, and there's some of the disadvantages back then were that because there was an expectation that the video was a certain quality to get on MTV, everybody's spending a lot of money doing those videos, and it was a lot of the times recoupable against monies that, from the record company. So artists had to make a lot more money just to pay off the videos. It was a different day. Right now it's an interesting time just because you don't have to have a record deal in order to get noticed. And I personally like that. If I had come out now, I would have loved not having to sort of deal with the rejection of, labels or them not thinking you're this enough or that enough. And there's something pretty amazing. The only downside about now, comparatively in my perception, is that there's so many artists out there, and there's so much stuff going on at any given time that it's so hard to kind of get noticed. And back then, I'm not saying it wasn't still, a lot of people in the field, but it was just different. There's so much stuff out there right now that it's like so dense, But like I said, anybody can put out a record. You could put out a record tomorrow and not have to go to the record company and say, do you think my stuff is good enough or am I worthy? And things take off organically. There's not someone, pushing it at radio or this or that. If something takes off, chances are fans find it on their own, and there's something really honest and great about that. So I see it as it's different, but I don't want to see it as better or worse. It's very different.
When you were under Manhattan Records, which actually was owned by Universal Music Group at the time, or still is at the time, is that I find it interesting during the time you had so many major labels, and now we have a handful now. And artists like yourself that I've had the pleasure of conversing with that at one particular moment in time, or point in time in their career, they were signed to the machine where they had everything done for them, and now they find themselves, as far as, being an independent artist. And a lot of those artists are having a very challenging time with making that transition as far as being in complete control over their career. How long did it take you to make that transition to have complete creative control over your career and know that as far as being precise as far as the direction that you wanted to head it to as far as in your future was concerned?
I mean, I think I was lucky with the people I dealt with at my label. The head of the label is a guy named Bruce Lundvall, and he gave me a lot of poetic license. I had a lot of leeway. It wasn't like someone was trying to talk me into going some direction I didn't want to go. Even back then, it was a rare situation. It's one of the reasons that I signed with him, because he was just such a fascinating, music-oriented guy. So my experience may not have been the norm. And yes, there's a lot of things done to you in regards to the different departments. There was, whether it be publicity or whatever, they're all working. These days, what happens is that a lot of if you do end up with a label, whether it be a major or an indie, you end up hiring those people almost what I call a la carte. You might get a publicist, then you might get someone to put, work on TikTok or what have you. But artists right now, I think it's self-empowering right now, because artists have to kind of learn to post all their own stuff themselves if they really want to get out there and be seen. Even some young artists that come meet with me, I mean, one of the things that's so typical right now is, well, how are you doing out there? What are your numbers like? And on one level, it's there's not the ideal where the record company's building the artist over time anymore, and that's too bad, because maybe your first single didn't take off back in the day, but maybe your next one would. Right now, it's almost like you have to have some sort of heat on you, whether it be numbers, whether it be a TikTok viral thing, whether it be something. You sort of have to walk in with something going on. But on a self-empowering level, when an artist does that for themselves, they know they don't need the label, so there's an element of sort of more partnering with other labels or other people, as opposed to, please, can you break me so the world knows who I am? Now, if you're walking in and you've made it, you're on a certain level on your own, you're selling a certain amount, whether it be Spotify or what have you, YouTube, what have you, but you don't need to count on the labels. And it can be very empowering. The people that I see doing really, really well, on some level, they kind of feel like maybe they don't even need a label. Maybe they don't. If you're doing that well, I mean, there's something to be said for that. It's a very different world that we're living in. Radio still, has a certain, it's a different kind of beast. But as far as just the whole viral thing, and recently I had a song that I wrote called I See Red. It was from a band that I work with called Everybody Loves an Outlaw. It took off and it became a huge viral hit, and now it's up to like 1.3 billion on TikTok. And it was fascinating to see how that worked and when it started taking off. And I learned a lot about that side of things. And there's a lot of record companies that have, most record companies have departments that watch what they call analytics departments. They watch things take off, what's going on. Oh, this is getting all this love on TikTok or Spotify, or, they kind of watch all that. And so that's how we ended up making a deal with that one record on Sony for the one record. But there was something that they said for just doing it on our own. I mean, it happened without a label, and it just became a huge viral thing. And there's something, like I said, very empowering about that, where you don't really need the label in order to make something happen. You just have to be resourceful, believe in what you're doing, and stay on it. Because with TikTok, you have to be posting 3-4 times a day practically, it seems like.
I must admit, I never thought I would actually see in my time where all the wonderful music stores that we had at our disposal, as far as Sam Goody, Music Land, Warehouse, Tower Records, just all disappear at the snap of a finger. Yeah. And it left a lot of great artists kind of reeling, what do we do now? How do we go about promoting our music? Did you have any insight that you actually seen this coming, that as far as